It says I have a viewer. Also says I've been live for 10 seconds, which I don't believe. I am early because I've got some D&D later today, and I want to start my prep early for that. So I figure I'll do this early. Welcome, everyone. Today is a good day. I'm having a good day. Hope you're having a good day. We're going to talk about some audio stuff that I think applies to both the DJ audience I've recruited as well as the more sound-oriented people I've recruited on this channel as viewers and subscribers and all of that. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get into that. Where is my OBS button? Humble Bundle. This is one of my most favorite, most dangerous websites of choice. I am a fan. They, if you aren't familiar, if I just go to the regular website, you're almost always going to see them as a video game website because that's kind of how they got their start. Essentially, they're where you can go and buy games for usually a bit less than some other sites and stuff. Not always. They've got this Humble's Choice thing. It's an interesting idea for the video gamers out there of you pay a monthly fee and then, hey, you get these video games every month and you get to keep them after. So it's kind of like Game Pass, except that you own the games when you're done. 5% of your purchase goes to charity, which I'm glad that they're very upfront about that these days. We'll get to that, talking about some other stuff. You can see my pricing is in Canadian, which is nice. The difference between this and, say, Game Pass is you don't get to decide what games and whatnot, right? Game Pass is like, here, there's hundreds of games on our platform. You can download and play whatever as long as they're on the platform. This is like, here's 6 or 7 games every month. Enjoy. They also give a discount in their store. So just be aware, if you look at the checkbox that says join now in the cart, this is what they're getting at. But this is the big thing with Humble Bundle, is the bundles. They usually, like I said, are video games and stuff. That's not what we're going to be looking at today. But usually they're pretty good deals. And then every one of these bundles partners with a charity. So they've got books. I've bought a few comic compendiums and stuff like that. I don't follow them as closely as I do this. So software. They've got a big video game focus, so you'll very frequently see Unity or Unreal assets. I've seen how-to courses and stuff of like, here's a program to learn how to program in that kind of stuff. Every now and then they'll have 3D printing bundles and stuff. Like they had one, I think it's gone. I considered it like 12 times. I didn't end up buying it, but they had one that had the under the books, they had the Fallout RPG with a bunch of 3D printables. But carrying on down here, every now and then they have stuff that I think really matters for creators, for DJs, for musicians, producers, etc. Sometimes, like Corel Draw and stuff, they'll have, your B team programs and stuff, usually at a good deal. That's the big thing, right? So if I go here, like this Vegas Pro Edit bundle has a bunch of stuff I'd probably never use, but has, sound effects and scores and stuff like that I believe they usually use royalty-free stuff in here. And then have Vegas Pro 19. I think they're on 20 or 21 now. Oh, it's a 1-year license. All right, never buying it again. Sorry, Vegas. I own Vegas 18, 17. Can I minimize this without it showing it? Vegas Pro 18 from a Humble Bundle. Funny enough, and I love it, but it is a lifetime license. Like I just have the software, I can just use it. So this being a 1-year license, 1 year. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But anyway, yeah, like that's how I've gotten my both the video editing softwares I've used. I wouldn't get this one. They've got Epic royalty free. I own so many royalty free pieces of music, but if you need like you're making YouTube videos, you're doing short films, or doing live streams and stuff like that, this stuff's great because you own it. Like these are royalty free, use it in whatever kind of tracks. I mean, the licensing you'll want to read your licensing agreement and stuff. But I've bought some of these and they're like, yeah, use it in whatever, basically. So make sure that's that. But they are suitable for films, games, or whatever you're working on, right? So if you want royalty-free music behind, say, a YouTube video, and you don't want it to be the royalty-free music that YouTube provides, I make my own. We'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, that is something that pops up. Now, getting to what we're actually getting at, and what I've got linked in the description. Mixcraft 9 recording studio, and then a bunch of other stuff. So this bundle here is the one that I have linked underneath. Now, if you click that link, full disclosure, I get some of that. End of statement. So it's, if you want to support the channel a bit, that's an easy way to do it. I'm going to do a live stream like this anytime that a cool bundle like this pops up that I think is relevant. I'm not just going to do a live stream and I'm like, hey guys, here's some cool video games. I might do that because I can just have an affiliate link underneath and just do like 5 minutes of each stream dedicated to here's a way to support the channel that has some cool stuff if anybody's interested. I don't know if that would be too... I don't think that would be too bad to do. I mean, a lot of podcasts, live streams, all that stuff, they go and they're like, hey, here's ground news. Hey, here's Audible. Here's the link. Click it. And they just have that. So as long as it's not too long, I don't see any problems. So, but let's talk a bit about this bundle, and then let's talk about how I'd recommend purchasing it if you would like to. Mixcraft 9 Recording Studio is or was one of my favorite DAWs. If you're unfamiliar, DAW is Digital Audio Workstation, right? Now, it had its quirks. The newest version fixed a bunch of them, but I really, really like it. So now, because they have a new version out, it's hard to find stuff on the old version. So I've just got this Music Radar review on it here. And yeah, some instruments look quite old. Like, if that's the only negative that's in a review, you're doing something right. Now, I will say this was published in 2020. Mixcraft 9 was released in like 2017 or something like that. I think they've re-uploaded this since, kind of thing. Yeah, because this article here, or no, this is from 2019. So still about 4 or 5 years old. Clicking through a few things here, which that makes sense. If it was released in November 2019 and then a review came out in April, that's okay. That makes a little more sense. It was like, that seems like they took a long while. But the beauty of Mixcraft is it is a not as jack of all trades as some DAWs, it has a strong focus on music creation. So you can easily make loop-based music, and it works really well with MIDI. It really does work well with MIDI. That kind of stuff, like MIDI programming in it, is probably the second easiest I've personally used, but take that with a grain of salt because I haven't used MIDI on too many DAWs over the years. But it is very designed around that. It also has a performance mode. I've heard tell that some people find it actually more intuitive than something like Ableton Live for doing like a live performance using gear and whatnot. I can't attest to that myself because I haven't used Ableton Live and haven't used Mixcraft Live. Though if somebody does want, if anybody's interested, I have Mixcraft. It's not on this computer right now. It's on my computer at the studio. But I have all the equipment I need to do like a walkthrough of it. So if anybody's ever interested in that, let me know. But I digress a little bit. The big thing with it, like I said, is it's designed more around music production in that sense. It isn't as intuitive as some DAWs I've used for just strict, I want to be able to click record and have everything work. That crown goes to Reaper. Reaper is and will always be, in my opinion, the best recording DAW. For general recording, editing, and then mixing, like if you're in a rock band and you want to record yourselves and you just have it just stable and work and be really intuitive, Reaper is one of the best. And it's pretty cheap. $60 American, like, go for it. The only reason I don't use Reaper anymore is because Mixcraft 10 fixed some of the quirks I was having with Mixcraft 9. Going back to the bundle, though, we'll get more into Mixcraft 9 and if this is worth it momentarily. But like I said, I quite like Mixcraft 9, but that's the kind of crash course on it. It is very, very intuitive for what I would say is the music creation. And on that note, they include in this bundle Dream Synth, Mercury 4, Quadra. These are all synthesizer plugins that if you get the next step up on Mixcraft, which I'll talk about in a bit, I believe those are included. Like I know the Mercury one is. I don't know about Dream Synth. I'd have to check. We'll check in a bit. But you get that, and then you get these soundtrack loops. You get, you can download these and then have extra loops. You may have seen, I think I mentioned in a previous, stream. Is it Musica's Music Maker? I don't know who makes Music Maker anymore. I could be wrong. But Music Maker is a really annoying program. I think it's so close to being great, but it's very microtransaction-y, charges you for every little bit, blah, blah, blah. Especially for their like song bundles for like, here, you buy this bundle and you can make loop-based music using this collection of recorded sounds, blah, blah, blah. Mixcraft is awesome for loop-based music making because not only does it often come in a bundle that includes a whole bunch of soundtrack loops, right? 250 loops in like this pack alone. Some of these are going to be WAV files. Some of these are going to be MIDI files. Yeah, like if you haven't made, and again, I can do a video on this or a live stream on this in the future. I just don't have it hooked up to do it today. A lot of these, what they are is recordings, like, and they'll be like 2 to 4 bar, sometimes 1 bar recordings of a drum kit, a piano, etc., right? And they then will let you drag them into the track or the song. Mixcraft will adjust them to the key of whatever you have. So you have to be a bit careful if you go too far off, right? Any DJ out there knows that if you change the pitch on a song too much, it starts to sound unnatural, even if nobody knows what it originally sounded like. Once you pitch shift something too far, it starts to sound a little But you can pitch shift it up or down to match the key that you're in, and then it will automatically time adjust it to be in whatever BPM you're in. Both of these are really, really handy. So unlike some that I've used where you have to use everything from the same loop bundle, or everything's going to start sounding weird and not mesh up together, and you're going to get just strangeness because the pitches don't line up and stuff. Mixcraft 9 takes care of like all that for you. And I'm aware other DAWs do that, but I'm aware some don't on purpose because it forces you to buy more versions of the same loop pack because they don't have the pitch shift internal in the software. It's really annoying. Mixcraft 9 does that. So it's really easy. You drag stuff in, you can edit the lengths, you can pull out individual things from it, you can then add, synths and stuff over top of it, or MIDI drums, or whatever the heck you want. It's very intuitive to make music in this style. And for me, like, I've done a few radio commercials where, hey, we want this kind of style background music and that kind of thing. Instead of going to like a bundle like that other one of, hey, here's royalty-free music, I can make my own song using the loops. They're royalty-free loops. I'm set. Now, Mixcraft does it really, really nicely where it has like hundreds that it comes with, but it doesn't download them all unless you ask it to. So if you click to preview a loop, it will download it and then play it for you, and now you have it on your computer. So it doesn't just download gigabyte after gigabyte of loops if you don't use them. And yeah, it's it's also an intuitive regular DAW. But then on top of that, this comes with MIDI loops, and then also like pre-recorded WAV files and MP3s and stuff like that. The bundle also then has some, like this tape echo, and things like, buying this gets you a bunch of the stuff. Now, if you only want to pay that, you get a couple synthesizers and stuff, and a few of the loop packs for $1.37. That's sweet. This, don't even bother. Reason being, the way that this works is the middle number here is the average of what other people have paid. So very few people went for that. Most people have gone for this. So this is within $1 of this. So just get the full one. It also gives you a $15 credit. Now I'm assuming there's going to be a expiry date on that, so you got to be careful of that. But if you're a loop-based producer, or you're thinking about getting into loop-based production, spend $27 Canadian. I believe this is a $15 American voucher. So, and I believe in the US this would be like $22, $23 American. That gets you Mixcraft 9 and this and all these other goodies. So if you just want the loops, this is worth it. If you have a different DAW that's your DAW of choice, you get these as, I believe these are just VSTs. So as long as your DAW works with virtual instruments and like VST specifically, although double check, like go to Cherry Audio's website and stuff and see, because sometimes they have these usable on other platforms, because I believe it's been so long since I've used Pro Tools. I believe Pro Tools uses a different protocol, because VSTs were invented by Steinberg, if my memory serves, originally for Cubase, and then slowly but surely became an industry standard. And because they were one of the main competitors at the time to um, Pro Tools. I think they split off, and Pro Tools does their own thing, especially because originally Pro Tools wouldn't work native on the computer. It was hardware based, and you would need accelerator cards and stuff in your computer. This is all by memory though, so feel free if somebody has a better memory of this, correct me if I'm wrong. Where Logic, modern Pro Tools, Cubase, all those other companies, their DAWs were all on your computer itself. They're on your hard drive. They're using your they're using your computer, which nowadays is perfectly fine. There was a time where that was a bad decision, right? I mean, computers are way faster than they used to be when all this stuff came out. So relying on the computer before meant that Pro Tools was way more stable, way more powerful, faster, all of that stuff. So I think it's fallen a bit behind, but that's a whole other story, and I don't really want to get into that. All I can say is after using Mixcraft 9 and getting it myself for about $20, because I think at the time the Canadian dollar was doing better. I don't know if I'd ever go back to a, $600 per version DAW. It's like, I'm actually curious now. Cubase 13. I went up to Cubase 7 or 8, and it just kept costing me more and more money. Privacy. Who needs it? Yeah, I want Cubase full versions from 145. But if you want, the Pro version, 840. Now, this could be Canadian dollars. This might be American. I don't know. But yeah, I'm never doing this again. Now, Cubase, amazing program. If you like it, keep using it, especially if you've been keeping up on your versions. But because my version is so old, it will cost me hundreds of dollars to upgrade to the latest version, and I'm just done with it. I bought Mixcraft 9 for $20. I've got Reaper, though I think I bought it once ages ago. I think the version I'm using right now is an evaluation copy. But with Reaper being $60, unless you're making over 20 grand American on it, this is, and again, also educational and nonprofit. Yeah. All license purchases are fine. Yeah. And I love this. The fine print, and it's 2 sentences long. oh, that warms my heart. Yeah, like Reaper is one of the best things to happen to this industry for a very long time. I need to rebuy Reaper, even though I'm probably going to be using Mixcraft 10 from now on. Reaper is really good. But yeah, so going back to the bundle, like I said, if you're on the fence about Mixcraft, be aware, I believe it is Windows only. So if you're a Mac guy, sorry. That I'm not 100% sure on. We'll take a look at some stuff there, because I also want to talk about the versions of it. And then you get all this other stuff, including like I said, this is, I think in American dollars, probably $22. And then you're getting $15 in store credit for more loops. And it is just store credit. It isn't like, oh, this is a coupon to use for blah, blah, blah. When I got my last store credit from Soundtrack Loops, I just went to their discount page and filled the cart up with all their stuff that was 50% off. And I think it came out to like $16, so I sent them $1 and got like another $40 or $50 worth of loops, because they were on like 60-70% off or something like that. Yeah. Now, the way to pay what you want on, let's go back to Humble Bundle for a second here. So if you're interested in this bundle, like I said, you can use the link in the description. As long as this is active, which I believe this is active for another 20 days, something like that. but I'll do other streams if they come out with more. 17 days. So as long as this is active, that link will work. As long as you spend at least 27.52 Canadian, whichever one is in this top right corner, right? Because as you click it, it'll show stuff vanishes. Oh, you can pay more. You can do more. You can do more. This is their suggested price. I don't know why they do that. So you can pay more if you want, but this is the minimum that I would bother with this bundle. Sometimes this middle one is a pretty good deal because it'll have half of the stuff and sometimes it'll be half of the price. And if you don't need everything, cool. But the fact that it's, $27 gets you all of these. Chillbeat harps. Interesting. I might have to get this bundle myself. Even though I own Mixcraft 10. And if I do, then I might get this and then give some of these away. We will see. That might be on my future list of videos. But we'll see if people like this video, right? Like, watch this live stream. If you want some of this stuff reviewed, let me know. Because then I can do reviews. I think I can buy this and then give away the VSTs because I own a bunch of these already. That's a maybe. Anyway, so if you do go to this, so part of this is going to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Cool, and you can read more about them. But if you go to do this at checkout, I wouldn't just hit checkout. I would click here. Adjust donation. So if you look here, only $1.37, which considering what's happening here in terms of you're buying a bunch of stuff from a website. The website has to stay open. The publishers get some money from it. Cool. That's not the end of the world, right? Like, how many times have you seen a product where they're like, for every pair of shoes you buy, we donate a pair of socks to like Africa or something, right? They'll have a country that I'll have a hard time pronouncing that has a famine, and they will send food there for everything, like stuff like that. They'll have these little they're giving away $1 for every $10 you spend, like stuff like that. That's not too bad, but it can be better. You can donate more. You can click the extra and it just does that, or you can go custom amount. And if you don't care about the publishers, you can just go whoop. Now if I don't care about the publishers, right, so say especially that one that was like a year license, that I was like, guys, what are you doing? A year license on these, that hurts my soul. If I don't care about the publishers and I just want more money to the charity, I'd probably do this, right? This can't go below a certain threshold. It used to, you used to be able to do it, but the site's got to stay in business, so they've changed it so you have to keep it there. And then you just crank this all the way up. The other thing you can do, this is usually what I do and would do in this circumstance, is something like that. Of like $9-ish to everybody. Everybody wins. Right? I wouldn't just click checkout. For me, especially if I'm a big fan of the charity, I will increase the charity and make sure that Humble Bundle stays in business by giving them roughly the same amount. But if I don't care about the or if I don't care about the publisher, right, like that other one where it's like a year license and it used to be a purchased software, and that annoys me that they've done that, I'd probably give them $0 or a penny just to be spiteful. But yeah, so that's Humble Bundle. That's how I would use this. And I recommend this one. Mixcraft 9, like I said, is great with some quirks. Mixcraft 10 is better. So let's talk about Mixcraft specifically now that we've gone over this. Like I said, I think at the $22 American or whatever this is, coming with a $15 store credit to soundtrack loops, and then these VSTs alone, I think if you use another DAW, just get the bundle anyway, because then you have those. Like I would say it's worth it for those. Because this one here, for example, if I go to Cherry Audio, Yeah, this one's like $20 on its own. So get this in this bundle for $22. It includes the other stuff, right? Now, I don't know these synths too well. I don't. Oh yeah, this one's $40 on its own. This is very much worth it if you want some of the virtual instruments. But the DAW here. So Mixcraft 9, going back to it, I know I'm all over the place right now. Mixcraft 9 is an okay DAW. I would recommend, if you get the bundle, try it out and see if you like it before spending more money. But it is the recording studio version of it. There's 2 versions of Mixcraft at all times. Kind of 3, because they have their like farm team version that I would never recommend buying on Steam. Don't buy that one. I think it's Mixcraft Home Studio or something like that. Compare. Oh no, those are versions. Yeah, Mixcraft Home Studio. Never buy this. Never buy that. That one's on Steam. It's not good. It doesn't work very well. And there is hundreds, if not more than hundreds, of free Mixcraft Home Studio 8 keys out there, because Humble Bundle had a version. I don't know why they did it this way, but if you bought Mixcraft 9, it came with Mixcraft Home Studio 8. Maybe they couldn't take out stuff as you were adding. I would have just removed it. But there's a whole bunch of people who have Mixcraft 9 and just have a key. So if you know anybody who's using Mixcraft, I've given mine away, or else I would put them out there as, hey, here, it's free, take it. But I gave all my keys away already for it. But yeah, don't buy that one. Just get the bundle that has the full Mixcraft 9. Now, they're on 10.5 to be exact. This is normally an $80 DAW. American, so remember that. And then the Pro Studio is $150. The differences between the two, usually when I see a cheap DAW, like sub-$100 DAW that has like an upgrade path, it's going to be, oh, you've got like 10 tracks you can use. You've got like, where do they compare? Like, it's missing a whole bunch of stuff. You can't use certain things. Like, I've even seen, and this is what drives me mad about the free version of Music Maker has incredible limitations. I think you can only have 10 tracks going at a time, and you can't use VSTs. So you can't use any of your external stuff, and it doesn't really work well to bring in third-party loops and stuff in it either. It's just awful. So at like $20 or whatever, the 9, like Mixcraft 9, is so much better. But then the Pro Studio upgrade, in this case, they've added stem separation. Somebody open sourced their code for this, so I think just every DAW in the world is going to start adding this. If you're a DJ, you're well familiar with these. Stems is sweet. Being able to just click a button and you just get rid of the drum track, or you get rid of the vocals, right? Especially for making remixes. I think this is actually incredibly valuable and powerful in this DAW specifically because of its live functionality. If you want to use this program live, now that you can do live separation, that's sweet. Yeah, so that didn't exist in the previous one. I don't know what some of this other stuff is, but scrolling down, the biggest difference used to be the native integration of Melodyne. Melodyne is super cool, and the integration for me was enough because that is what this is. Melodyne initially was a pitch correction software. Now, if you have a monophonic file of like any kind, you can basically right click on it, audio to MIDI, and it will turn that into a MIDI file. Because the pitch correction, the way it would do it is it scans all of the pitches and stuff, and it just will create you a MIDI file that uses the same curves, both in velocity, so in terms of volume, but also in pitch. So if I take a loop, say I bought, the harp probably wouldn't work, but there's a like guitar solo or something from this 80s glam metal that I really like this little loop that they've got, but I want it on a violin. I right click it, convert to MIDI, and then turn it to a violin. Done. And it's pretty intuitive. So for me, that's why I upgraded to the Pro Studio. But as you can see, live performance panel, music notation, step editor, piano roll editor, video editing. Video editing on 9 sucked. I will be honest about that. Unlimited tracks, right? All of this stuff is exactly the same. All the major things. Scrolling down, all of this stuff. Now, some of these are going to be different between 9 and 10, so just be aware of that. But going into here, now instruments, this is where the big differences were, right? Their grand piano, it's a little dated compared to some modern piano piano VSTs, but it's actually it is still really good. They've got a few different synthesizers and things like that. Those are not included unless you upgrade. And then a bunch are. Right? So they have the Acoustica instruments and their expanded instruments. So these alone, this is what would normally come on most DAWs is like these 3. Right? Here are our standard stuff. Our standard instruments and drums and that, and then anything else would be like a bonus. But what Acoustica's done that I think is actually really smart is they've started working with third parties. So for example, Cherry Audio. Hey, that tape echo that they're selling for $20. Galactic Reverb, that I'm sure if I go and look this up, this is probably $20 again. They include these in the Pro Studio version. And this is like everybody wins. They probably pay Cherry Audio a couple bucks for including it, but then it gets their users trying a company. Like I never used Cherry Audio stuff before I bought Mixcraft 10. Now I'm intrigued by them. Now I've used them a bunch. Now they make other stuff. Maybe I should look into them. Now I personally own enough VSTs. I'm probably never buying another one again. But I say that every year. Then Black Friday hits. But carrying on, a whole bunch of them are included. And again, from third-party companies in a lot of cases. But then they've got some pro stuff that's not. They've got Isotope Mastering Essentials, Melodyne Essentials. The Isotope stuff is actually pretty good. I own the step up from it, so I don't use it. But I don't own the full thing. I use I think it's RX or something like that. Anyway, but yeah, they've got a bunch of stuff that you do get if you do the upgrade. So I click over to here. If you own Mixcraft Recording Studio 9, it's $80 to upgrade to the Pro Studio, and it's $30 to upgrade to Mixcraft 10.5. Now, open a new link. This is normally an $80 program. This is normally a $150 program. So this is regularly $80 for Mixcraft 10.5. I can go in, I can buy it for $20, right? 22 or something like that American, and then upgrade it for 80. And then now, so I'm $100 in, give or take, and I'm getting their $150 software, but I got to try the previous version first. And if it's not your thing, well, then you have all those loops and all that other stuff. For me, it's worth it for the amount of VSTs that you get, right? If you don't have a big VST collection, you don't need a big VST collection. Trust me, it almost causes more harm than good to have a crap ton. That's something I've learned the hard way. But yeah, especially if you get it, you enjoy it, you want to start doing this a bit more professionally, getting the Pro Studio version, having that Melodyne built in, having the extra VSTs, all that stuff, I do think it's worth it. That all being said, these upgrade prices, right? This is against their usual price. I don't know if I've ever seen this thing at the actual $100. I think they're $200. I think this is one of those, it's pretty much always on sale kind of things. Don't quote me on that though, because I have seen, and if I was you, where's my camera angle? From you person watching this right now, who maybe at some point is watching this and it's a different bundle or it's on Fanatical or something like that, which we'll look at that in a moment too. If I was you, I would get Mixcraft 9 for the $20. Crank that charity slider up so that even if you don't like it, you know, okay, I help support a charity, and then I got a bunch of loops to use in a different DAW. Problem solved. And then wait till November for this magical, horrendous time known as Black Friday / Cyber Monday, where Mixcraft has put their software on sale every year, including the upgrades. Get the upgrade for like 30 or 40 bucks. I think that's what I paid. It might be 50. And then all of a sudden, you're 70 or so dollars in. You've got what I would consider to be a professional level software with a crap ton of VSTs. Problem solved. Yeah. So that'd be my recommendation, is wait for the like if I Black Friday Mixcraft. Yeah, so this was their Black Friday sale from this past year. Plugin bundles, Cherry Audio. So I have a suspicion Cherry Audio is actually affiliated with them. Oh, there's a Reddit one on it. Yeah, up to 80% off Mixcraft 10 upgrades, up to 74% off third-party plugins, right? So that was their previous year. So wait until Black Friday to do your upgrade. But everybody wins. Yeah. Now I will say, the upgrades that they've done, this 10.5 is pretty good. I wish they had the 9 versus 10. They might in version history. That's 10.1. 10.1. Mixcraft 9 versus 10. Hey! What's new? Free update for 10 owners. Oh, this is all stuff they've added in the 10.5. Enhanced controller support. That's nice to see. because they deal with MIDI internally pretty well, but I did have some issues with MIDI devices, so I'm pretty happy to see that. Yeah, mixer controls. This is sweet. Yeah, the stem separation is going to be very valuable because, again, this does work as a live performance. Live performance software, but that's not as useful for me currently. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Mixcraft. User guide. Audio hardware. Choosing a driver. Wave. Yeah, like I'm 90% certain that it is PC only, which I kind of prefer in some respect. I have nothing against Macs or Mac users. The problem is because Mac has its own thing going on, especially since they moved to ARM, although this might change because Windows might be moving to ARM shortly. By might be, I mean is. It's just how quickly it's adopted. ARM isn't doesn't deal with the processes the same way as I think it's x86 that AMD and Intel use currently. They tried doing ARM on Windows. It's failed twice. So if anybody remembers Windows 8.1. Ugh. But they might be coming out swinging now. Like the processors are much more matured. I think it's Qualcomm Snapdragon. I think it's. Chances are your phone has a chip in it that is going to be seen shortly in something bigger than a Chromebook, because Chromebooks are using frequently similar processors to tablets. We're going to see more and more of that. But right now, here's the reason why I don't mind that this is PC only. They don't have to worry about optimizing for both platforms, right? I kind of like that because the platforms are so different, having here's one that works on one, here's one that works on another. I distinctly remember years back when I was still using, I think it was on Cubase 6, a bunch of people had done benchmarks using a dual boot system, and Cubase just ran better and was faster and more efficient on PC. Cool. And I liked Cubase. I liked Cubase more than Pro Tools. I have nothing against Pro Tools. I learned how to do recording, editing, mixing, all that stuff on Pro Tools. It's a fine program. It just sometimes is a little behind its competitors because it's such a... I have had somebody explain to me why it's actually not the end of the world, that it's a little bit slower to update and to add features. Anytime you're dealing with a widely adopted professional setting software, instability cannot be tolerated, so they have to be a little bit slower to roll stuff out. That was the explanation I was given, and I give them a little more grace because of that explanation. I still prefer other softwares, but anyway, with that Cubase program at the time, I had somebody who was just like, "Oh yeah, you've got a recording studio?" Yeah. And it's like, "Oh yeah, like He was talking about something. I was like, well, oh no, I use a PC. And it just blew his mind. He's like, well, why don't you use Mac? Well, because I use Cubase, and Cubase runs better on PC. But you're making music, yeah? So why don't you use Mac? Because I'm using Cubase and it runs better. And he just looped, like just could not fathom it. Now, this was at a time where Mac versus PC was even more. Now, honestly, Mac versus PC, nobody cares. The bigger thing is Android versus iOS. Like that's where a lot of people seem to give a shit. I don't. Right? If you use a Mac, cool. If you use a PC, cool. I think the war is over because why do I care what you use? But Mac was running ads targeting PC and saying that, like, the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, aren't we clever ads. And a lot of people got in their heads that one was a superior platform to the other. I don't think it was ever really the case. They were just better or worse for specific tasks. And Mac generally and historically, and I think it's a little tricky now, has been better for particularly like video editing, and stability in audio up until Windows 7, I would agree. The way Windows used to work back in particularly the DOS-based stuff, but right up until Vista, like one of the reasons Vista actually was a big step forward, but was also a mess, was they moved their audio drivers. They drastically changed the way audio worked so that if in the olden days, if your audio driver crashed because it was just tucked deep in the bowels of Windows, it would actually crash your whole program. Like your computer would crash itself. You'd blue screen out. Now, if your audio driver crashes, it can recover. Everybody's probably had it where your video driver does that, where like your screen will go for a second, and then you'll get a little message in the corner saying that your audio driver failed but has now recovered. We used to have that for audio, but when it happened, Windows itself would self-destruct. Not ideal, but that's what we had, so it's what we used. So modern Windows is way better than it used to be for audio ever since Windows 7, I would say. Technically Vista, but Vista was a pain in the ass. 8.1 is better if we never talk about it, right? But yeah, 7 and 10 were glorious. Windows 11, if Windows tells me to switch back to Edge one more time, I might throw it out the window. Like it's getting very, very annoying. But I still do like it, and it is very stable. I don't have any of the weird issues that I used to have. Performance is much better even on older processors. However, I will say these M1 and beyond Macs, if you can afford a modern excuse me, a modern Mac Mini, if you can afford a modern Mac Mini, you are probably set. Now, up to 24, that's the only thing I don't like here, is these up twos. They are much less repairable. Like I love me a modular computer where I can swap out parts and fix things and repair stuff. But the Mac Mini, I'm not a big fan of the iMac. I think these are overpriced for what they are. A Mac Mini with at least Oh, it jumps so much to go to 16 gigs. They're pretty powerful computers. Now, I don't believe them when they say their 8 gig of memory is the equivalent of 16 gigs in a Windows computer, but I kind of do. The way that the Macs work, and it's again, they kind of took this page from cell phones and tablets, is the RAM is soldered on directly to the processor. So it's not the pain in the butt. We soldered the RAM in because that we can save a couple dollars on the motherboard or things like that you'll find in some of the thin and light laptops, right? I talked about this in my last live stream. I bought this behemoth of a laptop. The reason I bought it was I can remove the RAM, I can remove the hard drive, and I can add in an external hard drive without any tools. The RAM and stuff you need a tool for, but the extra, like there's a SATA drive spot in it to just pop an extra hard drive in it. That's awesome. You don't get that on thin and light laptops. Usually they'll often solder the RAM in, and it is just for saving money, honestly. In some cases, it is a little more devious than that, where they just don't want you to be able to upgrade it yourself. Now, in Apple's defense here, this is not the reason they're doing it. This memory, this RAM that they're soldering on, is on the same chip as the processor. What that does is it lets the processor communicate much faster with the RAM because they're all on the same, like, the SoC stands for system on chip. And anytime you have pathways that stuff has to travel through to communicate, it can slow things down. I mean, you wouldn't think it, but it's just the bus, like the amount of data that can go back and forth. It does matter. And because of that, they claim that this 8 gigs is enough. I don't personally think so. Like, unfortunately, I would say the 16 gig is kind of the minimum. But this 8 isn't as bad as it sounds. Now, the minimal to no storage that they put on these, like, guys, this is an $800 mini computer. You can put in, like, NVMe, like, they're probably putting in a decent SSD because you can. But a terabyte SSD from Kingston, like, this is a good name brand, etc. $85.99. I don't understand. I will never understand why. Like, why is this their $1,700 computer? Why doesn't this have at least a terabyte? That I don't get. That's unforgivable. The RAM, there's actually a rationale as to why they don't need as much. I still think RAM is cheap enough. I would hope. Now, these are the M2 Max. I'm actually curious now. Do they not have? So they have the M2s. They're on an M3 now. Is it only in the Mac Studio? Oof, 2700. Okay. Guys. What is this website? What is This is horrendous. I'm sorry, Apple. I know you're trying to be cool and have like this kind of video thing. This is, you can see hopefully in the corner, my scroll bar moving up and down. This is me trying to just get to the stats page. And it's like a video. I mean, that's a interesting concept where like your scroll bar is switching from page to page, and it looks kind of like you're switching from, yeah. So these are still M2s. All right, after all that, I'm still disappointed. Because where are your M3s? I know they have an M3 out now. Is it only in Mac Pros? There they are. I'm curious now if a base model, I go buy M3 only. Guys, 8 gigs still 500 meg 500 gig. Apple. I was recommending your stuff. Now, this is Canadian pricing, so people don't freak out too much. But so this is $2,000. Now, again, the M3 chip, this thing is amazing. However, if I go workstation, oh God, workstation laptop. I hate this. I thought this was cool at first, this side panel thing, but I'm very non-cooled by it anymore. Lenovo. Not a big fan of their customer service, but I do like their laptops. So, mobile workstations are where it's at. If you don't need gaming features, you just need pure power. So this is Lenovo's answer to that Mac, because that Mac was $2,099, so $2,100, right? Never look at this and think, oh, it's 2,000. It's 2,100. This is $50 cheaper. 14-inch, which I think, oh, too many tabs open. I think, speaking of too many tabs open, there we go. I think this is a 14-inch. Yeah. So 2 Thunderbolt / USB 4 ports. So it only has 2 USB ports. As an actual HDMI port, that's nice. And I believe that's a full-size HDMI. None of that mini HDMI garbage. And then, yeah, this guy. Now, admittedly, not as sleek, not as cool. However, integrated graphics at $2,000. Ryzen 7, that integrated graphics is going to be pretty good, actually. Those things are pretty sweet. Soldered RAM, don't like that, but 64 gigs of it. OLED display, non-touch, which on an OLED I'd be fine with. Ports, we've got 4 USB. We have a proper Ethernet port. I don't know if the Apple one did. What they do sometimes is they'll put it in like the charger and then like have a connection, which I don't mind that actually. But I don't know if that's how Apple does theirs. Does not look like it. Effortlessly edit 4K video. I don't know if I I would actually be curious. Can a Apple M3 with 8 gigs of RAM handle 4K video? I'm legitimately curious on that because I really like these M chips. Like I don't want to hate on Apple because I think they are such a step forward in terms of price for performance. But I think they've rested on their laurels too long on it, and I think AMD in particular has really caught up. But yeah, because like this is not a thin and light laptop. It's a 14-inch, but £3 for a 14-inch. Ooh. But this guy, 64 gigs, has a full terabyte of proper space. Looks like this, I believe, would be removable. The fact that this is soldered annoys me. However, the fact that it's 64 gigabytes of RAM soldered in removes a bit of that annoyance. Because it does mean if a RAM chip ever goes bad, you can't replace it. At the same time, I don't remember the last time I had to replace a dead RAM stick. Like they are way more reliable than they ever used to be. Yeah, but yeah, like I would take this Lenovo over that any day. I am curious though if they've got one. What was the top end? So this one still 16 gigs, 1 terabyte, 2600. What can you get from Lenovo for 2600? Do I have to go back on all of my? Well, the price for performance isn't nearly as bad as it used to be. As an actual RTX graphics card with almost as much RAM as the last one, but in the graphics card itself. Interesting. Only 16 gigs of RAM, but they're SODIMMs, so you can actually replace them. I would expect more than 16 gigs, though, at 2600. My ancient laptop that's on the floor there has 16 gigs of RAM. IPS panel. I think the majority of what you're paying for here is that Intel has graced you with their presence. I'm not a big Intel guy anymore. I think they have the way it basically worked for my non-PC friends. Intel had the top rank processors for a long time, and AMD did not. Ryzen happened, and slowly but surely they traded spots. Intel tried to come back swinging and didn't, but AMD wasn't improving as quickly as they probably should have. And then the new AMD stuff actually has really come out of the, batting above its price range and all that. So, yeah. Now for audio, I don't know if I would do 16 gigs of RAM anymore. I think that's a little low for this price point. I think this should have 32 gigs. The way that these Intel chips, I think, might actually be better for audio. It is a myth that you're going to have a whole bunch of weird audio glitches and stuff with AMD versus Intel these days, because Intel is using the I think it's x86 that AMD came up with. So, like, they are a lot closer in how they work than people like to give them credit for. But something Intel does, AMD is pure raw, unbridled performance. They are just big engine, go fast. Intel, this processor here has these things called E cores and P cores. I think Apple is doing this now too. So total cores 14, and then we have 6 performance, 8 efficiency, and the reason this is now 20 threads. So threads are kind of like a virtual core, where the core itself, your computer essentially sees it as 2. It's oversimplification, but as far as the computer is concerned, this has 20 cores. Right? This has 20 processors to work with, because these 6 performance cores can kind of split itself up in the threads, right? They even have, where applicable, and is only if it. Good explanation. Now, performance cores are the unbridled. They're the powerhouse ones. Efficiency cores are slower, but they just give extra lanes of processing so you can have more tasks going in the background at a time without your processor to have to switch back and forth between stuff. You can dedicate them to more and more things. And for audio in particular, I think that's actually very useful. Audio doesn't need a lot of power. Audio, we don't like to we don't like to talk about it. Audio is child's play for modern computers. You do not need an i7. Like it used to be, I did a whole like computer buying guide. It used to be get an i7 and then eventually get an i9 and don't go anything lower. An i3, a modern i3, not EMA. Memory Express is like a chain here in Canada. Their prices are usually right on point for what they sell for in Canada. So again, if you live in the States, I think it's Micro Center is your best bet, especially if you're doing a custom PC. Computer parts. What am I looking for? Processors. There we go. Gotta love when you're staring at it and your brain just cannot. Product line i3. The cheapest one. 4-core, 8-thread. For you Americans, that's like 110, 120 bucks. It'll probably be about $100 in the US, is my guess, because conversion doesn't work perfectly. It should just be a percentage, but import fees and different cost of living, all this crap adds up to it's just more expensive here. But these are all performance cores. They don't bother with the other stuff. Like this processor probably keeps up or surpasses i7s of old. Like there's a lot of people hanging on to their i7 like 4th gen, 5th gen. I'm sorry, these 14th gen i3s are probably going to outpower it by now. Not always, but they're starting like they're widening the gap more and more and more. And like a modern i5 is probably going to be problem solved for a lot of people, right? Like you can easily, I wouldn't go all the way back to these 12th gen ones, even though they are available. I would get something a bit more modern. Yeah, like this 13th gen here. As far as I know, there's not a big difference between a 13th gen and a 14th. So I would just get 13th, personally. But again, they have performance cores and efficiency cores. This i5 is going to wipe the floor with a lot of i7s of old. So don't feel you need the fastest i7 of today. Now, the advantage of going with an i7 today is that it will future-proof you longer. If you're building a modern computer, like a desktop in particular, I would go with an i5, i7, or a Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7. I wouldn't bother with 9s on either of those for audio. Maybe for video and for bigger math crunchy stuff. But get those modern ones with DDR5, and then you're probably set for the next 5 or 6 years. Going with something that's a bit older that is DDR4. DDR4 is more than fast enough, but you're going to find it's just going to lag behind a little bit. But again, it should be fine. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, like, and this is just Lenovo's website. I'm just looking at what they've got available. Some of their workstation stuff is pretty rad. Like this is their answer to like a Mac Mini. I'm actually curious what's all in here. Integrated graphics still, although in this form factor, I'm not too surprised. Only needs 230 watts out of the wall. That's pretty efficient. 16 gigs, right? Again, better. Yeah. These, though, won't do video editing as well as the Mac equivalent because the integrated graphics, although have improved dramatically, they are better on Mac, which is really weird to say. I don't like that, but it is the truth. Now, anyway, what is their towers going for? Does this have a proper graphics card? Please, at this price point, have a proper graphics card in it. It doesn't? Although you could probably add one. God, I wouldn't spend $1,600. doesn't even have a graphics card in it. Like that's a good. Is that a good processor? What do these things even sell for? i5. This is a 13th gen, so it's not even the not so necessary jump. Yeah, it's a $250 14 core 23. I wouldn't. I would build my own, right? Like if I go or on here, gaming computers are usually heavily overpriced, but because that one was like 1,300, 1,600. Oh God, 1,600. What can you get for 60? And again, Canadian. Yeah, Ryzen 7. That's a 5700X. So this is an older Ryzen, but has a 4060 Ti graphics card in it. Thing's gonna wipe the floor with that Lenovo. I just don't understand. This has a 12th Gen i5. This has a where do they have any with 14 Gen in that kind of price range? This one's 1,800. Oh, wow. So 42% off. How? Lenovo, you've lost your mind. 1,700 bucks gets you a last gen i5, which is a weird one too. That's not a readily available. It is a V Pro, so there might be some advantage to the Pro versus the standard consumer one. 500 gig hard drive, 16 gigs of RAM. Screw that. 16 gigs of DDR5 versus, I believe this one is 4. I mean, it can handle both. I'm actually curious. DDR5, 4400. Doesn't say, so it's probably on the slower side. Usually they brag if it's better. But this is an i7 in a little slower, but way more cores would be my guess. I don't know this processor. Wait, they do an F series in 7? 8 core 12, or 8 performance core 12, and then it can go up to 5.4. Performance core base frequency 2.1. So yeah, the Pro i5 is actually pretty good. But yeah, having this RTX 4060 Ti. Now the 4060 Ti was a ripoff. 3060 was the equivalent. Like this, the 3060 Ti versus the 4060, I think were basically on par. So the Ti was only slightly better. But it can do AI and all that better. So, but yeah, like I would pay the extra $100 for this any day of the week. Not just because it looks cooler, but because this is also going to be a much, like that is a way better case. I'm not a giant fan of MSI, but like this case is going to be way better for airflow than that other one. Built-in graphics card, all that stuff. Hello. Yeah, it's a bit of the Wild West these days when it comes to figuring out what the heck you need in a computer because, like I said, I think it's the 7th gen. What do I do for a living? Well, this stuff. I do music. That's originally I was talking about this Humble Bundle stuff, but that was a while back. Now I'm just ranting about computers because I was talking about DAWs and that turned into Windows versus PC, and now I'm here. But anyway, speaking of living, am going to go have some food, I think. Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, if anybody stuck out this long, if you are interested in more of a walkthrough on Mixcraft, I can do that. As well as I'm considering, just don't know, but I'm considering if I buy a bundle like this and and then doing reviews / a giveaway of the codes for some of these, because like if I already have this synth, I just have to check if I have it. But I'm gonna sit down in the studio tomorrow. I think I've got some time. I'm gonna see if I have these, and if I do, I can do a review on the plugin and then do a giveaway. Who knows? But I've got a whole bunch of reviews semi in the tank. Quite a few pre-recorded that I just have to get to editing and stuff. But I do these live streams because I enjoy them and because it keeps the channel somewhat on life support while my life stays nice and busy. That coffee was very cold. All right. You all have a good rest of your Monday. It's a holiday Monday here, which is why I'm early. But I will talk to you next time.